The country appears to be as politically divided as ever. New CBS News polling shows the likely rematch between President Biden and former President Donald Trump is neck and neck nationally and in the battleground states. The results come as Biden ended his D-Day trip to France with a message of unity, and Trump campaigned out west.
I think it is a measure of a country's support for democratic values, that they honor those who've risked their lives and lost their lives.
If we win Nevada, we win the whole thing. We win the whole thing.
Joining me for more is CBS News Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto, and our Chief Election and Campaign Correspondent, Robert Costa. Thank you both for being here to walk us through all of this. Anthony, I want to start with you and this polling. A neck-and-neck race nationally and in the battleground states. Why is this race so close right now?
Hey there, Caitlin. So let me get you caught up, and that starts with what you described at the top. This is what we in polling call a tie, because you've got Trump +1 nationally, and then you've got Biden +1 across the 7 battlegrounds, the states that'll be most decisive, we think, in this. So within the margin of error for both of those. Then the reasons for that is after the verdict, and this is our first polling of this after the verdict, first of all, context, the verdict for people does not compare to how they rank issues like the economy and inflation, issues on which Donald Trump has advantages, right? But then you do see a little bit of added motivation now among Democrats to turn out to oppose Donald Trump. So these numbers here, where Democrats now are as likely to say that they're going to turn out in the battleground, that hasn't always been the case. So Biden's got a little bit of traction activated after that. And, you know, I'll point out a couple of demographics. I think attitudinal measures probably tell more of the story here, but these are the things people track. This is how Biden is doing. He's doing a little better with independents, a little better with women voters, with black voters. Are these his 2020 numbers? No, they're not. So he still would have a way to go there, but a little bit of improvement there, motivated again by that motivation a little bit to turn out afterwards, Caitlin.
And Bob, former President Trump has been back out on the campaign trail, freed from the courtroom in New York. But he still today had to meet with, had a probation interview for that criminal case in New York, that hush money case. What exactly was that, and how important is that in terms of sentencing that's supposed to come in July?
Former President Trump is the presumptive Republican nominee, as we all know, but he is also someone who has been convicted in Lower Manhattan of 34 felony charges, and he has to go through the process in that court just like anyone else who's been convicted of a crime. So he sat in a virtual conversation today with a probation officer to talk about his background, to give a little bit more of information on his status as a candidate, his status as a person who has maybe never been dealt with this process before. He sat alongside his lawyer, Todd Blanche, I'm told by a source, and he talked through his situation. But it's so unprecedented to see someone in his position dealing with this kind of routine criminal defendant activity. But it's very serious for Trump, not just on a legal level, but on a political level, because this sentencing on July 11th will determine whether he's facing probation as a sentence, maybe he's facing house arrest, or even time in prison. And Republicans are prepared for any sort of possibility right now. They know most defendants with his background wouldn't get a jail sentence. At the same time, Trump violated the gag order and angered the judge throughout the trial, which we covered extensively. So anything is really on the table.
And that sentencing coming just a few days before the Republican National Convention as well, of course. Anthony, you know, we've been trying to assess how this verdict is playing with voters. Does it motivate Trump supporters? Does it motivate Biden supporters in any way? Have we learned anything about how voters are feeling about this conviction 10 days or so removed from it?
So I told you about the Democratic side. Let me show you the Republican side, right? For most of them, for 71% of Trump voters, this conviction, they say, doesn't matter. And I'll show you why in a second. But take a look at, there's about an equal number who say, among Trump voters, they're trying to show support for him after the conviction, a little added motivation there. But there's the same number who say they're voting for him in spite of this conviction. So that motivation back and forth is a wash. Now, let me show you a little bit about the way they see this as being political. We know already from previous polling that they didn't see the charges as serious throughout the trial, that they didn't see the verdict as fair. And then there's this. Even when you ask them, why do you think Donald Trump was charged in the first place, right? For independents, for Democrats to say, okay, that was decisions by local prosecutors. But for Republicans, they think that directions came from the Biden administration. So that speaks to the way they see this and the way the president has talked about this, the former president has talked about this as politically motivated. They have bought that argument. I will add this very quickly, Caitlin. Going forward, when we say to people, okay, should Donald Trump, do you want him to prosecute and investigate political opponents, maybe to get back at what they feel is political now, right, if he gets elected? And look at the difference here, where MAGA Republicans are much more likely to say they want him to do that than non-MAGA. And that speaks a little bit to these divisions within the Republican Party about what they would be after in a second potential Trump administration, Caitlin.
Yeah, and Anthony, you note about how voters, Republican voters, are kind of absorbing the rhetoric that Trump has been using against institutions, for example. Is that playing in any other way? How else are we seeing that?
Yeah, because it's not just the courts, right? And it's a lot of things. We did this. It's a very broad-based question, but how do you think the political system is working? Some folks, not a lot, think it works pretty well. Most folks say it needs fundamental changes. In both of those cases, they're voting or leaning towards Joe Biden. But the ones who say the system needs complete rebuilding, they're very heavily for Donald Trump. So you pick up a little bit of that attitude towards everything is broken, everything needs major, major changes, and maybe they see former President Trump there as maybe a vehicle towards some of that. And that speaks to that loss of confidence in institutions, perhaps, that you described, Caitlin.
Yeah, and Bob, speaking of that, I mean, Donald Trump now is, again, out on the campaign trail, speaking a lot about this, but also on other issues. Let's take a listen to what he had to say about workers during a rally in Las Vegas yesterday.
So this is the first time I've said this, and for those hotel workers and people that get tips, you're going to be very happy, because when I get to office, we are going to not charge taxes on tips, people making tips.
All right, so a lot of questions actually about how that would be done at a federal level, of course. But it's interesting that he was campaigning in Nevada, a place where union workers are, play an outsized role. The economy is still, reeling in Nevada. I'm curious kind of how you see him playing there, what you make of this kind of pitch.
So often in campaigns, we talk about the groups that represent swing voters. Who are the real targets for each of these campaigns? I always think about in 1996, it was about mothers in the suburbs, and that was a key part of that 1996 campaign, Bob Dole versus Bill Clinton. When I talk to the Biden campaign and the Trump campaign, it is so evident to me, based on my reporting, that workers, especially those who are members of a labor union, they're the swing vote. And you see, when I spoke to President Biden in Detroit for CBS Sunday Morning a few weeks ago, it was so clear Biden was going to go to Detroit to be with Sean Fain and the UAW because he knows those voters might believe that Trump's pitch on immigration and the economy is very worthwhile for them, and they might be tempted to move toward the right. And so that's why you see President Biden keep going back to Michigan, back to Pennsylvania. Every time he goes to Pennsylvania, where does he go? He meets with union workers in Philadelphia. And for former President Trump, he knows that he has an appeal to some workers, even if they have traditional Democratic ties. And he believes that that support for Biden might be soft. So he keeps going to places like Nevada, which may be a bit more tempted towards the Trump side because of the issue of immigration, and he's making his pitch.
Yeah, Nevada also, of course, huge for hospitality and an industry that is still, recovering from COVID. Fascinating arguments to watch play out in those key battlegrounds. Bob and Anthony, thank you so much for the campaign reporting and the context. We appreciate it.